Hi folks, how y'all doing? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to break down UFC Fight Night 134 or UFC Hamburg Shogun versus Smith from the Barclaycard Arena in Hamburg, Germany. Coming off UFC Boys at the weekend was a card that was a little bit weird with the judges. I thought some of the scoring was atrocious. Like I expected, underdogs were to win. I'm kind of kicking myself. I never bet Riano Barcelos. That was one I'm still really kicking myself right now over that. But overall, it was a fairly decent card, and I think I went like 8-4 for my pick. So pretty solid. A couple of ones. Picking against Chad Mendes was a bad one in my part. It really was. I know he was out for a couple of years, but that guy's challenged for titles. Bad pick, one that I'm looking back on, and it is definitely a bad pick. But we're moving on to UFC Hamburg here. One wee thing. We hit the 2,000 followers, guys. So appreciate that so much. I'm actually at 2020, so I got like 22 new subscribers from the past video, which is awesome. And now I'm in the mission to 3,000, so hopefully one day I'll be able to hit that 3,000, and maybe once we get to maybe 2,700, I'll maybe see if we can help me out a little bit more and get that countdown on. But to hit 2,000 subscribers is absolutely unbelievable. Still pinch myself every time I see that number when I come into my YouTube channel. So I appreciate all the support and appreciate the comments. You guys are awesome. Sometimes I don't get back to you as much as I should. You know, I work a lot of hours, and I try and put in as much time into this as I can. So sometimes I don't get back to you as much as I would like, and I really apologize. I'm going to start trying to be a little better at that in the future. A shout out to Malato, who's always watching my videos. UFC Pick'em's going down, which sucks. Don't understand why they're stopping it in the middle of the year as well. After UFC 227, I think I'm in the top 30 on that, and was striving to hit the top 20 by the end of the year, and it looks like they're going to pull the plug on that by the end of 227. So I've moved myself over to the MMA Playground. I'm over there under my name, Will Martin MMA. You can find me over there. I'm still getting to grips with it a little bit, but that's where I'm going to be putting up some of my pick'ems and stuff, and try and see how well I do with that. I'm still doing Tapology as well. Shout out to Scott Maze Chaser. You'll find him on Instagram at Maze Chaser, and this guy does some sick work regarding MMA, and he made my new banner. You will see if you go to my homepage, the new banner, which I absolutely love. I think he's absolutely nailed it. So Scott, if you're watching, buddy, I appreciate that. Your work's awesome, and I'm sure in the future we'll maybe, if there's anything that I need, I'm going to come to you, and hopefully you can sort something out for me. And just sick work. I appreciate it very, very much. So getting into this card, I actually like the card. Love the fact it's on a Sunday. Because obviously on a Sunday I'm off, so I don't have to stay up till silly o'clock in the morning. And so I'm really, really looking forward to watching this. I think it starts at early afternoon my time, so it'll be maybe 10, 8 a.m. over there in the West Coast, maybe, or whatever. But I'm looking forward to really watching the fight card. And we're starting off in the bantamweight division with Damir Stasiak against Liu Pingyuan. When I went and looked at Pingyuan, I was not, honestly, not impressed with what I've seen. I think he has some power in his hands. I think he's got a good-ish double leg takedown. I think he can get that. I think he's got some pretty bad takedown defense on his own. And I think he is fairly decent off his back, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's really his strong suits. Damir Stasiak is a guy that I thought he'd be a guy that won fights in the UFC, but he's turned out that he's really not kind of all that. And I'm a little bit disappointed, so I'm going to pull this page over a little bit. It's kind of in my way. There we go. Right. So yeah, and also, can I just apologize? Last week I had some issues with, I don't know, my camera seemed to jump out a couple of times. People were saying the sound. I went and bought a brand new microphone not so long ago. So I think it's doing fine. I'm being told it's been doing fine, but if it's not, let me know, and I will try and get that sorted for you in due course. Sorry about that. But like going back, Pingyuan, I think he's got some power. I think he's got a good double leg. I think he's got pretty bad takedown defense, and he's fairly decent off his back. Damien Stasiak, I think, is a solid pro. I think that he's a guy I expect a little bit more out of, but I think he's a guy that's maybe he's going to start losing a couple of fights in the UFC now. How he's going to go in this one, I honestly don't know. I think Ping, he's got some submissions, but that's against opposition which is not all that strong. Where Stasiak has fought fairly decent guys in the UFC. When I did my podcast in MMA Huddle last night, I went with Stasiak, and then I went back and watched a couple of fights, and honestly, I think the man from China here has a fairly good chance. I don't give him a high ceiling in the UFC, but I think he could possibly win this fight, which kind of surprised me. And I think he's an underdog. I bet an underdog. So I'm not going to bet him. I'm definitely not going to bet him. But do I pick him here? I don't know. I'm struggling with this one. This is one that I'm not overly too keen on. I think I'm going to pick Damien Stasiak. I'm going to stick to my original prediction. I was thinking about changing, but I think I am going to stick with Damien Stasiak to win via decision there. I'm not super confident in that. I think Ping could actually win the fight, but I'm going to pick Damien Stasiak to win there. Moving on, we have Jeremy Kimball against another newcomer to the UFC in Darko Stosic. We'll start with Jeremy Kimball. I think he's very, very low level. I don't really, when I watch him, I'm not impressed by anything. I think he's aggressive to the point where he gets too aggressive, where he just gets countered, gets hits with big shots. And I think this is a fairly good introduction to the UFC for Darko Stosic. In saying that, Kimball has won a fight in the UFC. It was over Josh Stansbury, has lost, and when he does lose, he usually gets stopped, and that's something that I think he looks for the door. If he's not in the right frame of mind to win the fight, or he doesn't think he can win the fight, I think he looks for the door, and I think he does it fairly quickly as well. Lost to Peugeot de Lima, lost to Dominic Reyes, got submitted there. Darko Stosic is a guy that I've known about in the European circuit for a little bit. Fights out of Serbia under the Krokop team now in Croatia. So he's a protege of Marko Krokop. Works with Satoshi Ishii a little bit, which I've seen on the social media side of things, and that's probably explaining where his dangerous kicks come from. So yeah, I think he's a fairly decent fighter. He was a UFC. He was a heavyweight originally, moving down to the UFC 205 division. I think that's the division he should be at. He's only a 6 foot heavyweight, not very tall, very stocky. He's built like a brick shithouse. But I think he could do fairly decent in the 205 division. I must admit, I think that the right move was definitely down to 205. I think he's got knockout power on his hands. I don't think he's overly technical. He throws a lot of overhand shots. Like I say, I think he's decent with his fists. I think the strongest part, which stands out for me in his striking, is definitely his low kicks. The guy's got thunderous low kicks, and he throws his hip into every single one. I think he'll end up hurting a lot of people in this division with leg kicks, and then eventually they'll be clutching for the legs so much that they might get hit with a big power shot. He does have a good counter left hook, but again, he's not facing the best of competition out there. Dion Starling was one that he fought a couple of times, and literally in one of the fights he threw the guy out of the ring. So the guy's got a lot of power. So yeah, I think he has got some serious dangerous leg kicks. I think he relies on them just a little bit too much. I think if he was to use his combinations, I think if he was to use his hands and then sets them up with blind kind of leg kicks or leg kicks that you don't see coming, I think he could hurt a lot more opponents. But like I said, he's not overly good with his hands. I think he's okay to say the least. But I think if he was to throw more slick combinations which set up his leg kicks better, I think it would help him. Very, very good wrestling. Showing good timing on his takedown attempts, and it's got the ability to finish off chain wrestling, which is good, where he'll go for a double leg, or he'll go for a body lock and he'll drop down to a single leg and look for that there. He's been out to Tiger Muay Thai a lot of times as well. So yeah, I think that he's a really good a good addition to this division. Well, a good addition. I don't really rate his skill set too highly, but I think in that division he will definitely win fights. But again, his last fight was against like a 42-year-old jobber who went in there. He got hit with one left hand, went down. There was a fight there. I can't remember who it was against. He threw 2 leg kicks and the guy wanted no more. He pretty much just quit. So yeah, this is a step up. I don't see it as a big step up, but I am pretty confident that Darko Stosic can somehow finish this fight. I think he's got some good ground and pound on top of that. So I'm going to pick Darko Stosic to win via a ground and pound, probably early round number 2. Moving on, Davey Grant against Manny Bermudez. This was a fight that was supposed to take place UFC Liverpool at the end of May. Davey Grant got pulled when I was down in Liverpool. I think it was the first night I was there, because we were probably the first ones to find out about the fight getting pulled, because we were sat in the table next to Manny Bermudez and overheard the conversation. I asked, is the news true? At this point, he was already drinking Guinness, so I was thinking it's definitely true, and it turned out it was. And for the rest of the week, we hung out with Manny. We did a fan meet and greet, and Manny decided to come down, and was great. Had a lot of drinks on the Friday night. We watched Bellator. Just a really sound dude. Getting on to his fighting skills there. I think his fighting skills on his first fight, I think he has to show improvement with his striking and with his hands, because they were pretty non-existent. He did get hit with a shot early against Alberto Morales, and Albert just hit him with a straight right down the pipe, and he just went straight into wrestling mode, tried to get the takedown. Once it goes to the ground, the guy is really, really proficient down there and very dangerous. I think he could get swept a little bit, but he is dangerous off his back. The one thing I want to see in this fight here is the evolution of his hands. He needs to show it. If you're in a shark, like a shark tank of a division at 135, you have to be an all-around good fighter to make the top 10, in my opinion, in that division, even top 15. So he needs to improve his hands, but I think his ground game is very, very good, very, very solid as well. Davey Grant, I think when I was there and I seen him around, I think it was a staph infection that he pulled out of the fight for, and honestly, I know it was for the rest of the week. I'm surprised he stayed there, on all honesty. I was wondering why he stayed, because he was at the fights on the Sunday. I saw Manny and him were actually talking at the fights on the Sunday, and I was surprised. He was pretty down all week that he wasn't supposed to fight. And of course, that's how he makes the majority of his money. So I could see why. To me, I got the sense that he really, I don't know whether he wants to be around the sport anymore. And I shouldn't be saying that really, because I'm a fan. And Davey is a fighter, and this is how he makes money for his family. But he's got a lot of good fighters coming through out the northeast of England. Adam Proctor's a guy that you should really listen out for. He's going to be a really good fighter. I think he lost to Stasiak. I think the Vera fight, I think, was probably Marlon Vera's. Chris Holdsworth he lost. That was 2013. The only thing I'm scared of here is that he catches Manny with a shot. I just don't see it happening. I'm going to pick Manny Bermudez here. I think he is. I think that Davey's going to get too aggressive. He's going to come in and Manny's going to take him down. I think once it hits the ground, I think he is a clear level above what Davey Grant is down in. So I'm going to go a round 2 submission for Manny Bermudez in that one there. Moving on to the Fox Sports 1 card. In the light heavyweight division, this is a fight I actually have a bet on, which I made last night. And it was one of the ones I did my tape on the fight very, very early and caught a pretty good lean and a great line actually over here in the UK. We got the lines out a full week before the fight card, which is awesome. I've already got 3 bets down on the card, and that's never usually... I never usually start betting until probably Thursday, maybe even Friday. So to have 3 bets, I'm looking at one more, which I'm not going to pull the trigger on just yet. But we have Justin Ledet against Aleksandar Rakic. Justin Ledet moving down from the heavyweight division, and I think there's a reason for that. He got popped by USADA, and I think he had to pretty much move down. He couldn't be taken those supplements or whatever it was that he took to stay in that division. He was never the biggest heavyweight, in all honesty, anyway. He's won his 3 fights in the UFC. I don't think he's looked overly impressive in his UFC fights, especially last time out against Zhu and Yamu. I think the one thing that I do think he's got, a right hand that he shows very well. I think if he hides behind it quite well, feints with it, and then throws a really fast strike. Has a great jab. I really do like his jab. He showed that in the Chase Sherman fight. But Chase Sherman's head's there to be hit constantly. You're always going to find this guy's head because he doesn't move off the center line, so he's easy to pick apart. Marc Godbeer got one takedown, got a submission there. I did not see that one coming. And then it's like the Zhu fight was very, very close. And I think now that he's got a really dangerous opponent in Aleksandar Rakic. And now it's his second fight in the UFC, Aleksandar Rakic, and he's coming off a win over Francimar Barroso. And Francimar is a guy that is really hard to look good against because he's just not great. He doesn't throw a hell of a lot. He's looking to clinch, try and get takedowns and lay on you, but he only throws like singular strikes, so getting combinations off. And to be fair, his defense he just covered up and he took a lot of shots on the arms and so on. But Aleksandar Rakic impressed me in his debut. The one thing that really impressed me was the fact he did get taken down. And I think a great quality in a fighter is finding the way back to his feet. He did that, I think, on 2 occasions off the top of my head. And when it was striking, he was throwing the more combinations, he was throwing the heavier shots, and he's throwing the more diverse shots. And that's what I like to see with the new fighters. I think he's very aggressive. I think he's very accurate. He's got a very fast hands, and I do think he has power. He has leg kicks there, so I think that he will chop the leading leg of Justin Ledet. And ultimately, I think he could possibly knock out Justin Ledet. But if this goes 3 rounds, I see him landing the heavier, bigger shots, and I ultimately see him winning the fight. I bet him at plus 138, which was a very early line we got out here. I think it's went down to plus 100, I want to say. So I've got a little bit of value in the bet. Just hopefully it pays off and he goes out there and wins. I think it's just a good matchup for both. I just like the aggressiveness of Rakic. I think he moves his head more, so he's not going to get hit with those jabs as much. And I think if he stays standing, I think he's the more diverse striker with more tools in his weaponry to throw. And takedowns, can I see Ledet going for takedowns? I'd be surprised. I'll be honest with you. I'd be surprised if he did. He could get takedown, but I think the Rakic would get back to his feet and start to hit him with a heavier shot. So I'm going to pick Aleksandar Rakic to win via decision and, move on in that division. Moving on to the featherweight division, we have another newcomer in Khalid Taha against, in fact, another newcomer in Narimani, who I keep forgetting his fight got pulled, I think, on the day of against Nasrat Haqparast. So Khalid Taha was a guy I really started to learn about a year ago when he fought in Risen. And when Narimani's opponent fell out, which off the top of my head I cannot remember, he was a guy I thought might get the opportunity to come into the UFC, and ultimately he did. Some of the things I think Taha needs to work on. Takedown defense is a big must for me. But he can get back up to his feet. But he does that by using a lot of pure strength, which is going to tire you out if you get constantly taken down. I think his scrambling ability is fairly decent as well. But it's better that he's not down there at all. So I think it's something he needs to work on. Very wild on the feet. Doesn't throw a lot of kind of accurate pinpoint shots. He just throws a lot of wild brawling stuff. And I think he needs to tighten that up a little bit. And he would land, if he was to tighten up honestly and not throw as many shots, I think he'd be a lot better fighter. I think he'd be a lot better striker personally, and he would land more. Because he only throws, when he does throw the wild stuff, it's usually only one at a time as well. So it's very wild, very looping shots. And with someone like, I think there's fighters in that division with so much diverse striking and leg kicks that it would really be a bad thing for Taha to not improve in those skills. But I think he's a decent fighter, honestly. I think he's a good addition to the division. I think that he's got some natural power, some decent kicks. Just scrappy, a scrappy fighter, and he's got some wrestling in there if needs be. I'm not sure. I'm not sure against Narimani it's all going to come together. I think he's a decent counter strike. I think he can counter strike very well when he wants to, when he's not throwing the wild stuff. And he throws from a variety of angles as well. But I think he's got a pretty dangerous opponent here. Not dangerous. I think he's got a very well-rounded opponent in Narimani, who is a guy obviously I know from the UK circuit. He came up through Cage Warriors, won the Cage Warriors Featherweight Championship by beating Paddy Pimblett. Was supposed to fight Nasrat Haqparast back in London in March, and then that fight got pulled on the day of because I think it was an eye problem to Haqparast. Solid, well-rounded fighter, good boxing skills, good footwork, and he times takedowns very well. If you're getting too aggressive, he will take you down and he will work on you and just look to kind of win rounds through that. Ultimately, Taha could get back to his feet, but I think Narimani is going to find a way to get this fight to the ground on multiple occasions. So the path to victory for me for Narimani is being careful on the feet, don't getting caught with big shots, and then the ability to take the fight to the ground and win the rounds through control and just being. I think he's just a better fighter. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter, honestly, right now from what I'm seeing, and I think it's a fairly decent opportunity for him to get his first UFC win against the guy coming here on short notice as well. So I do think that Taha needs to work at things, and he's only 25, so he can make a lot of improvements in the coming future. I just don't think it's going to be this fight here. So I'm going to go Narimani to win via a decision, a unanimous decision. Moving on, welterweight division. Emil Meek against Bartosz Fabinski. This was a fight that really had no interest in until I watched the fight, watched some fights of both guys, and it's an interesting fight if you're for betting underdogs, because Bartosz Fabinski, in my opinion, is a very, very one-dimensional fighter, and he's only looking for one way to win the fight, and that's through takedowns and control. And he's did that in the UFC over the two guys that he's faced. I think Gareth McClellan was one of them, and off the top of my head, I've completely forgot who his last opponent was, but they're not great opponents, in saying the least. But in those two fights, that's going to annoy me who his last opponent was. I can't remember. He's garnered 16 takedowns, and he does it from the opening bell. He does not want to come out and strike. He wants to clinch, take you to the ground, lay on you. If you can get back to your feet, you can. He will just literally go for takedowns. Now, this is a guy that could be a really good play on DraftKings this week, because on top of the takedowns, the guy passes a lot as well. I think he had like 16 passes in the two fights that he's had. Yeah, I think it's Hector Urbina. That's the other guy he was against. Hector Urbina. So the two low-level guys that he's beat. And we don't really see him all that much. He maybe fights maybe once a year if we're lucky. The thing with this match is Emil Meek, his takedown defense isn't great either, and he showed that. Now, I know he showed that last time out against Kamaru Usman, who's one of the most stifling guys with the wrestling and the grappling and so on. He needs to be in a striking match to show you his full skill set, in my opinion. I think that ultimately I see Fabinski getting takedowns, but I think he's going to pay for it in some occasions, and Emil Meek's going to catch him with something. I think a play on Fabinski is very, very, I think it's a short play this week, honestly, because all it takes for him to get a couple of takedowns in the round and establish some control down there, and he will win rounds. If Meek cannot catch him with shots, then he is going to be in a shitload of trouble on the judges' card, in my opinion. Like the fact that Emil's been at the UFC PI, he's actually been, I think last week he was working, or 2 weeks ago he was working with Kamaru Usman, his former opponent. So if his takedown defense hasn't improved, then I'd be very, very surprised. But in saying that, Fabinski is not the grappler what Kamaru Usman is. So last night on the huddle, I went and picked Bartosz Fabinski, and I was really close actually to betting him. I think he was plus 185 I saw last night. And I was going to bet him, but I thought against it. I gave myself an extra day, and I've looked elsewhere now because I've kind of changed my pick a little bit. I went with Emil Meek, and just for the fact I think he will get taken down, but I think he will make Fabinski pay for it, and ultimately the shots will come from Emil Meek, where he will put Fabinski down and he will stop Fabinski. So I'm going to go Emil Meek via TKO, maybe early round number 3 there. Lightweight division, Nick Hein against Damir Hadzovic. This is a fight I'm really looking forward to. Nick Hein, I think, is a guy I don't want to say he's on his way out. I like the fact that he's fighting again after he lost in May very, very comprehensively to Davey. I thought he showed terrible fight IQ in that fight. Try to take down a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, a really sound, solid guy down on the ground. It made no sense to me, and he got made to pay for it, and the guy tapped out. Ultimately, he's a fighter that he's a fighter I don't particularly like watching, if I'm being honest with you. I think he's very one-dimensional. I think he's very... I shouldn't really say one-dimensional because he has had takedowns in the past, but he's not your most exciting fighter to watch. Any of his wins have been... They all go to the judges' scorecards. And he does enough to win fights, but he's won 4 fights in the UFC, but it is against Lucas Ajewski, Yusuke Kasuya. I think Tahyun Bang was his last win. And then obviously he's got Davey. He got that loss out the road, and he's fighting here again. The thing is, with this match, he's against Damir Hadzovic. I'm a fan of Damir Hadzovic personally. I think that he's got a lot of power. I don't think he throws enough, though, which really annoys me, because I think if he was to land those hands, he could really hurt some folks. The one thing that stands out with him is he's got very bad takedown defense, and he can be taken down. We saw that in the Marcin Hill fight. We saw that in the Alan Patrick fight. But if he could just have an inkling of takedown defense, he's going to win fights in the UFC without a shadow of a doubt. We've seen that when Hild made a silly decision of going in for a takedown without throwing any shots behind it, and got made to pay by, I think, a knee. It was right up the middle and caught Marcin Hild and knocked him out. I remember cashing that as a big underdog. I think he needs to establish his striking straight off the bat, because I think Nick Hein throws with more output than what he does. And obviously he's fighting in Germany here, so the crowd's going to be on everything that Nick Hein does. So he might ultimately have the judges against him as well. So he can't make this a close fight. If this is a close fight, it's only going one way. And I'm not confident in picking Nick Hein in this spot. I think Damir has to show up. He has to throw with pressure. He has to throw with dangerous intent and catch him with those big strikes that he can throw. I think it's a fight that he ultimately needs to win. They might not keep him around. It's his 4th fight. He'll be 1-3 if he loses this. I think he's got everything against him here, and I think he has to come out aggressive and really put it on him. So I feel more confident in picking Damir Hadzovic personally, and I'm going to pick him via. Saying that, Nick Hein is really difficult to knock out. So yeah, I'm going to pick Damir Hadzovic. That's who I've thought from when I was watching tape. I thought he can get the shots off, and if he lands something clean, he could hurt him. But like I say, Nick Hein's only lost to 2 really good guys in James Vick and Davey. So he has to catch him, and I think he has to catch him fairly convincingly. I don't think he can put him down and allow the rounds to finish out. I think he needs to finish him and stop him here, plant those feet, throw those big hard strikes that I know he can throw, and stop Nick Hein. So I'm going to go Damir Hadzovic TKO round number 2. So that's us through the prelims. We're now on to the main card, and we're starting off in the lightweight division with Nasrat Haqparast against Marc Bone Crusher Diakiese. Haqparast, the guy that we've just not really seen all that much from in the UFC. We've seen him, I think it was against Marcin Hild a way back, and to be fair, he looks decent. I think he could be a decent fighter in the UFC, but we've just not seen all that much of him. We've seen him. He was supposed to fight Narimani, then he had that eye issue. trained a lot out at King's MMA, and I've seen an interview with Rafael Cordeiro, and he really talks very, very highly about Haqparast's skills and his dangerous overall game. I know for this camp that he's moved his camp to TriStar out in Canada, so I think he's going to come in with a game plan. You know what those guys are like at TriStar. They fight to a game plan very well, very thorough. Don't give too much away. I think that's the way he's going to fight here. Against Marc Diakiese. Marc, I think that knockout of Timo Packalén really was probably the worst thing that could happen to him, because he's went out there and everybody expects him to do stuff like that all the time, and that just does not happen at all. And it's shown his last 2 fights. I thought the Drakkar Close was a little bit unlucky. I thought he had an opportunity to win that fight. I thought it was very close, but ultimately, I think the right guy. Ultimately, I thought Drakkar Close. When I went back and watched it, it could have went either way. And we've seen what kind of fighter Drakkar Close is by beating Landos. He's a guy that's making improvements and getting better every fight. Then Dan Hooker, I think Dan Hooker looks very good. We've seen he looks good at 155. But this is a big fight here against the guy. I think this is a beatable opponent for Marc Diakiese. I think he needs to get back to his roots before he came into the UFC, and his early roots of his wrestling and his grappling and his strong takedowns. We haven't seen that all too much. We've seen it in the Sajewski fight a little bit, but ultimately I feel more confident picking Marc Diakiese. I've seen some people on Nasrat that think that he's got a good chance here, and I'm not opposed to that. I just think this is a big fight for Diakiese to really get himself back in the win column and try and get some of that hype back that he garnered after UFC London against Packalén. Like I say, he's moved out to American Top Team, and before that he looked great. Since then he's not. I think he's petered out a little bit, and I know he's still out there, and he's training with good guys. I mean, he's a main training partner of Dustin Poirier for his fight next week against Alvarez. I'm going to pick Marc Diakiese. I'm going to pick him via a decision in this one here. Welterweight division with Danny Roberts against David Zawada. We heard about this fight, or Zawada replacing Alan Jouban on Saturday night during the broadcast, and I thought, ooh, that is a tough matchup for Danny Roberts, for the simple fact that Zawada is a known guy on the European circuit. If you watch KSW, this guy's a known guy in there, and he's knocked guys out. He's got some big power, and he could catch the chin of Danny Roberts and hurt him. Now he's got everything against him. He's got to make a very short weight cut. From what I was seeing, that he wasn't really into a heavy training camp. He's got the opportunity here, and KSW have let him go, and he's going to fight at UFC Hamburg, where Danny Roberts, I really liked. I was probably going to end up betting Danny Roberts against Alan Jouban. I thought that would have been a good fight for him. This one, I seen the odds, and he's minus 400, and I don't think I agree with that at all. Personally, I think that Zawada could catch him, but he has to do it early, because I think he will start to fade late on in 2 and 3. He is a veteran, so he might not show his cardio discrepancies, because he knows kind of how to mask it a little bit. But Danny Roberts is a guy I think has got really good finishing prowess. I think he's got really good fast hands, good boxing, but I think he has a chin problem, and I think against big strikers, like we've seen, it doesn't even have to be big strikes. He can get put down, but I think he's got great timing when he strikes. He showed that against Oliver Enkamp back in London. I don't think Enkamp's the highest of quality in the UFC. I don't even think he's in the UFC anymore, and rightly so. I think he needs to go back out in the regionals and try and prove himself a little bit more. I'm not laying any juice on Danny Roberts here. I think Zawada is a live dog for the first 7-8 minutes of this fight. I think after that, I think Danny could start to piece him up a little bit and start to hurt him. But if I was you out there, I wouldn't bet Danny Roberts, not unless you're supremely confident. But the numbers, the line's not even good for it, in my opinion. So I'm going to pick Danny Roberts, and I think he could potentially win via TKO in round number 3 if Zawada starts to fade a little bit. But ultimately, I'm going to go Danny Roberts via decision in that one there. Heavyweight division with Marcin Tybura against Stefan Struve. Hand up straight away. I'm going to pick Marcin Tybura. I feel so confident. Well, not so confident. I think I'm just very confident that he can beat Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve, in my opinion, one of the things that started to piss me off recently is people saying this fighter's done, that fighter's done. and these fighters have went on to win fights. I'm not going to say that about Stefan Struve. I think he's still very serviceable as a heavyweight. I think there's matchups he can win. I'm not seeing many clear paths to victory here, but as at heavyweight, all it takes is one shot to change the aspect of a fight, and he is a very, very dangerous guy, but he is coming off a couple of losses to some guys that in the past I think he would maybe give a better fight against, and I think I can't remember his last one. Was it Daniel Amilonchik, UFC 204, Volkov and Arlovsky? I thought he had the opportunity to beat Arlovsky there, but I think I picked Arlovsky in that one actually. Can't remember off the top of my head, where Arlovsky just came back in and looked a little bit different, being at American Top Team and so on. Same with Stefan Struve. You have to be very careful because he's a long, rangy, powerful guy. But ultimately, I just think he's a guy that's digressing a little bit. And I think the opportunity for Marcin Tybura to beat him here is just don't engage and give the opportunities to Stefan Struve to hurt you in the clinch or on the ground, because he can pull up submissions. Like I say, Stefan Struve to me is taking a lot of damage. And I think that a well-rounded fighter like Tybura, who I think has got decent striking, I think he's got grappling if he wants to use it. He's also coming off a couple of losses, but he's only lost to decent guys, and Fabrizio Verdum and Derek Lewis, who are ranked high in the heavyweight division. I think that Struve's going to be the aggressor here, and I think that ultimately Tybura could actually catch him with a shot as he's throwing, like we have seen in the past with Struve. He gets a little bit too aggressive and he catches a big shot and he goes down. So I think Tybura could actually stop him here. I'm not super confident in a stoppage, but I think all it takes is one decent shot from Tybura, and he could put him down. But it's, like I say, it's the heavyweight division. Stefan Struve could ultimately do that as well. Like his footwork pretty much as well. I like his output. I just think he's a fairly decent heavyweight that's going to win many fights in the UFC heavyweight division. So I feel more confident picking Tybura here. Could he get a stoppage? I'm going to pick him via stoppage, actually. I'm going to go a third round TKO via ground and pound there. Moving on. Middleweight division, we have Vitor Miranda against Abu Azaitar. Azaitar, I should say, is a guy that I knew a long time ago from the fact that he used to fight in Cage Warriors. He knocked out Jack Marshman in 30 seconds with a massive left hand, followed up with a big ground and pound there, and then he went over to the PFL, did fairly well for himself. The one thing that stands out here, and I'll talk about Vitor Miranda just quickly, he's a really good kickboxer, but I think he's only got one round of gas, and if he can't get you out in that one round, I think he ultimately becomes the fall guy, and you can take this guy out. Azaitar is a guy that is got a really good pace, keeps it for 15 minutes, takes you down. He's got very vicious ground and pound. He can be taken down himself. I think it was Danny Downs or somebody, or Danny Jones or something. Somebody took him down. I remember watching that fight a couple of days back. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Got taken down, but he did manage to get back to his feet and ultimately win that fight. To me, I think it's just about surviving the first 5 minutes for Abu, and ultimately I think he could catch Vitor Miranda and he'll just beat him up, and he will stop him. So I'm going to pick Abu to win TKO submission in round number 2. I think towards the end of the round number 2, he will win that fight there. Light heavyweight division. This was supposed to be Glover against Ila Latifi. Latifi, I think, pulled out last week, I want to believe, and Corey Anderson stepped in here. And this is an interesting fight to me because I saw the opening line over here in the UK and he was plus 230 or plus 220. And I was like, oh, that's a really good line. And it was a line that interested me because I think Corey Anderson is a live dog in this fight. I really do. But the thing is with Corey Anderson, it's just not getting caught with a strike, because if he's too passive and he lets you get shots off, it literally takes one shot to put this guy down and put him to sleep. And that's the big worry here, if you're betting him, obviously, because I think, and this is going to sound a little off, I spoke with this on the podcast last night, I think, and I'm not comparing the two, I see Corey Anderson being able to control Glover against the cage, kind of like what John Jones did. Now, I'm not comparing the two, but I think that's the game plan that Corey Anderson could use, because he can get a lot of takedowns and he can control you from the top position. He showed that in his last fight. It was against Patrick Cummins, who is a decent wrestler himself, but he fades badly. Glover is a guy as well who is a fairly decent wrestler. He's pretty much a solid, well-rounded mixed martial artist, good boxing, dangerous jiu-jitsu with, decent wrestling, and he's got some fairly decent takedown. But I think he's taken a lot of punishment over the years as well. But with DC still in there and DC kind of beating some of the best guys, Glover's a guy he's never faced. So a couple of wins here for Glover could easily put him in the title shot window there. How do I see the fight going? Ultimately, I think that I've kind of struggled with this one a little bit, because I can see if Corey Anderson doesn't get caught, I think he could ultimately grind out and win a decision against Glover Teixeira here. And loved Glover's last performance, by the way, knocking out Misha Sakhonov, just absolutely beating his ass pretty much. This is a tough one for me, because when Corey Anderson lets you get shots off and it's too passive on the feet, you can knock this guy out. We've seen it against Jimmy Manoa. We've seen it against OSP, where he just let OSP throw that one strike too many, and eventually it caught him and put him down. You know, I'm going to take the shot in the underdog here. For me, it's about not getting caught with the crisp boxing that Glover Teixeira has and try and work in that takedowns. I was going to pick Latifi against Glover. I was pretty confident, honestly, in that fight taking place and how that was going to go down. I'm going to pick Corey Anderson. It's not going to be one of my most confident picks, though, coming in here on short notice. But I think Glover's a fighter you can beat if you work the right game plan, and hopefully he does that where he can put him against the cage and ultimately get takedowns, but be very careful, because Glover has a tight guillotine and he is very, very hard when he's got you in top position as well. I'm going to pick Corey Anderson to win via split decision in that one there, 29-28, but see it being very close, but not confident in the pick on that fight really at all. And the main event of the night, we have Mauricio Shogun, who are facing off against Anthony Smith here, who is replacing Volkan Ozdemir, who is fighting in 2 weeks at UFC 227 against Gustafsson. Volkan got pulled, Lionheart got pulled in. Happy that Shogun was still on the card, because I was hearing that he had an injury. It turned out it was a load of BS. And I know I've got some friends who are moving, who are going over to Hamburg for that fight, and to have someone like Shogun on there, I think is a big, big draw for a lot of the European fans personally. We'll start with Shogun, who is on his biggest win streak in a long, long time. 3 wins. I thought the win against Corey Anderson was a little too close for comfort. I think that if that was anywhere else in the world, ultimately I would give that fight to Corey Anderson. I gave it to Corey Anderson anyway, but the fact that it was in Brazil, the fact that it was in Brazil kind of helped him in that one there. But he is on his 3-fight win streak. He knocked out Gian Vellante, took a few licks in that one, but ultimately put the guy down, beat Little Nog and Corey Anderson. So he's on a 3-fight win streak and looks okay. I think he looks fairly decent, and the opportunity is there, because Daniel Cormier said he would love to fight Shogun Rua, which would be horrible for Shogun. But when you've got the champion calling you out, and if you're on a 4-fight win streak in that division, there is every opportunity he could get a title shot there. I've no doubt about it. What do we know about Shogun? Vicious striking, just a vicious warrior of a fighter, pretty much. I love when you go back and watch some of his brawls. I mean, the Dan Henderson one speaks for himself. You've got so many fights from Pride. You've got the Liddell fight on the UFC when he knocked out Leo Machida, when he knocked out Overeem, when he knocked out, we submitted Kevin Randleman's one that's always sticks in my head, Ricardo Arona. He's got so many good fights and good finishes in there that he's just one of the all-time greats, and one of the guys I'm looking forward to seeing go into the Hall of Fame in the future. But ultimately, I think there's a guy who's very, very dangerous still in that division and can win fights. Now, Anthony Smith is coming in here, like I said, on short notice. He's moved up to 205, which I think is a smart move for him. I think he was killing himself making 185, and he looked great in what we've seen him against Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans, his head was already out the door, so that's something to take into consideration here. The thing with I worry about here is just the long levers that he's got, that he could maybe pick apart Shogun from the outside and maybe in the clinch. I see him maybe struggling with his, like, maybe got a cardio problem. That he's seen that at 185 when it went into like late 2 and into the 3rd round, but that happens sometimes. It might not happen at 205 because he hasn't got that big weight cut. I think I watched the video with James Lynch where he says he barely cuts all that much weight to make 205. So that's something that could help him in this fight here. I see him coming out very strong in. I see him coming out very strong in the first couple of rounds, Anthony Smith, and then I see Shogun somehow taking over and landing a shot and hurting him. And I think once Shogun gets you hurt and he knows that he's got you there ready to take out, he can go and win the fight from there. I've bet Shogun Hua actually plus 200. I thought the line was a little off. I'm seeing a lot of people on Anthony Smith, and that's fine. I recognise where Shogun is right now, and maybe the 3-fight win streak is kind of clouding my judgment a little bit on where he is, but I think his confidence is high, and I think he's a really tough guy to put away if he doesn't get caught with a clean shot. Like the OSP fight, he got caught with a clean shot, he went down, it happens. His chin resistance is definitely not as good as it was when back in the Dan Henderson fight, where it was crazy the amount of shots that guy was taking, H-bombs and everything. But I expect him to take a bit of a beating early on, but then coming into the fight and just that warrior spirit coming through and winning this fight somehow via knockout in maybe the 3rd or the 4th round. I just thought, for me, I felt better picking Shogun than I did Anthony Smith, but I can see why a lot of people are very confident in Anthony Smith. I want to take the shot on Shogun and see if he's still got it and see if he can pull through in this one here. So I bet him at plus 200. So 2-1 odds, decent odds there, and I think he'll win via knockout in rounds 3 or 4. So that is my picks for UFC Hamburg. As always, leave your like, comment, subscribe, like your comments down the drop down box. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Subscribe if you can, and always like if you can. If you don't like them, so be it. Let me know why you don't, and I'll try and get back to you, and hopefully I can make improvements off that. We're back for UFC Calgary next week, Poirier versus Eddie Alvarez, a fight I'm really looking forward to. That main card I think is awesome. Aldo and Stevens, Ian Jacek, Auburn Mercy against Hernandez as well. Mateus Nicolau's on the card, which is one that stands out to me. And then we've got UFC 227. So the next couple of weeks are really solid fight cards after this one. Remember, it's on a Sunday. Until next time, guys, next week I will get back at it, and I'll have my predictions out for UFC Calgary next week. Until then, take care. Speak to you soon and enjoy the card this upcoming Sunday.